Therapist perception.
Bachelorette. Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I'm Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, and I am still here to talk about one more couple.
Yes, this is the, I guess, part C of our post Bachelor in Paradise breakup edition, basically. And today we're talking about Eliza and Aaron B's relationship and breakup. So we have some stuff to say there for sure. But before we get into that, please be sure to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. These are two small things and they go a very, very long way. So thank you in advance for doing those for us.
Yeah, please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
Okay.
All right. So first things first, we have been going through the 3 different couples that have left the beach together, 2 engaged, 1 just as a couple. All 3 of them had broken up within 4 days of the airing of the finale, which is approximately 5 months after the culmination of the actual recording. So what we're going to do in this little mini series is we're going to ask 3 questions of each of the couples, specifically with respect to their breakups. And that is, was it inevitable? Was it predictable? And with hindsight, what were the flags that were visible that we could maybe take into our own relationships as we, kind of work through and think about things. So we've already done Avon and Kylie, as well as Kat and John Henry. And so now we are on the 3rd couple. The couple that was considered to be the most stable, consistent, that everybody sort of knew was going to get engaged.
Which is bizarre.
Episode 2.
By the way.
Yeah. And that is Eliza and Aaron B. They were the 3rd couple to break up. This was this past Monday, I believe it was. And but before we get into all that, I do want to make one quick statement, and that is we are not a Bachelor Nation news station. We are not combing through all of their Instagrams and TikToks and whatnot, trying to get every piece of information and, to present it to you. What we care about are when we see specific events that we think are interesting to talk about within the confines of, relationships or overall wellness. And so that's really what we're looking to bring you. There are plenty of great other podcasts and YouTube channels that will give you up-to-date news. That is not who we are. Just to be clear.
Right. And along with that, the same disclaimer that I make at the top of nearly every Reactivity TV episode remains true here. And that is that what we are actually commenting on and reacting to is what we saw on TV, which is a highly edited and produced show, right? So we don't know these people. We don't have all of that information. We don't have enough information to actually comment on, assess, diagnose the actual people here. So what we're going to be talking about is simply what was portrayed to us on screen and use that as a jumping off point, as a ability to engage in a discussion, like Chris said, about relationships, dating, love, and overall well-being.
Yep, and we're also not going to do too much rumor mongering or speculation about things. We're really just taking the information that we have,
right?
And just going from there. So with that, Eliza and Aaron B. Let's just start at the top. Was their breakup inevitable?
Yes.
You are 3 for 3. Spoiler, everyone. 3 for 3. You think these were all inevitable? Interesting. Okay.
Tell me that you don't think this was inevitable. Well, let me just also preface this by saying one piece of information we got at the finale was that Aaron and Eliza were still in a relationship, but their relationship was on the rocks or had hit some bumps in the road,
speed bumps, yeah,
or whatever they had said. So we had gotten information from the show that there was trouble in paradise.
Yeah. Well, so the inevitability piece, I said it, I think best in the last episode with Kat and John Henry. Really, the difference between the kind of inevitability and predictability, in my opinion, is, if human action and human decisions would have changed the course or likely trajectory of the relationship, right? Then, it can be predictable, but it's not necessarily inevitable. But if something really, it almost doesn't matter what choices you make. If you are true to yourself and each party is true to themselves, there's no viable relationship moving forward
Mhm.
unless somebody drastically changes who they are, or somebody is just going to literally make every possible sacrifice for the other person. Then there's inevitability there, right? And that's really the defining difference is will if you stay true to yourself, will human action potentially allow this relationship to last or not? And the thing with these two is I actually think that it was not inevitable, because as we saw, Eliza's very immature. And if you just dote on her enough and just do all the words of affirmation, then you might be able to. You don't agree with
I
that?
hard disagree.
Really? Okay.
As I said in the Bachelor in Paradise, our finale reactivity TV episode, that is, I think, what Aaron had set out to believe. And that is the setup that I think Eliza outlined for him, is that I will just keep asking for more and more and more and extra. And if you give it to me, then I will be on board. And Eliza kept moving the goalpost.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything Aaron could have done would have ever felt enough or satisfying to Eliza. And I think Eliza made the biggest mistake by saying yes to Aaron when she knew that she was not in or was not confident about the decision or the relationship or the circumstances around the proposal. Like, yes, I think Aaron probably would have continued to give more and more and more, as we saw him do this entire time, but nothing would have appeased Eliza. We saw so much evidence to support that. At some point, Aaron's going to get frustrated, lose patience, run out of I don't know,
Resources to continue to dote.
I was going to say cliche phrases to say, but yeah, resources, and like, how long can that be sustained? How long can one person sustain a relationship? So you don't think it was inevitable? That shocks me.
I have to say, you really make a very good sales pitch for inevitability. You really do. And I agree with you that Eliza, and maybe this is just the man in me, but I just feel like there's an obstacle to overcome, and I can overcome it with enough will.
I think that's what Aaron's.
And that maybe this is the male ego here. Because I agree with you, Eliza's not actually in on Aaron B. Aaron B, and again, shockingly, just kept checking the boxes. She kept moving the goalposts. He kept checking the boxes. And maybe it is just the male ego of me sitting there saying, like, no, no, no. Eventually, she's going to run out of field and she can't move the goalposts anymore. But it's also possible that there's an infinite amount of grass out there that she can just keep moving it. And so, yeah, you may have convinced me on this one, that it probably was inevitable. The question then becomes, was there something Eliza could have done to keep this relationship going? But to your point, I don't think she wanted.
I don't think she wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I'm saying this based on what we saw. I have no idea what was going on in Eliza's mind other than what was spit out and showed us on in the moment interviews and just looking at her body language, etc. But with that information alone, not trying to speculate what was going on in Eliza's brain, she was not giving any signs that she was interested in him. She seemed, I mean, we were very critical of Jess throughout this whole time, and Jess just being upfront in, hey, I like getting complimented. I like when you talk about my outfits. I like when you tell me whatever. She was pretty upfront. Gary, very critical of Gary and being a little bit selfish in the way that he views love. Hey, guess what? Eliza's the same.
Yeah, Jess is basically just the more honest version of
She was
Eliza.
honest, and I think that was for Eliza. It probably felt really good to have an attractive guy be interested and keep. Again, you keep moving the bar and he keeps meeting it. That must have felt really, really good. And that was probably what she loved and what she liked. And I think that's what it was. We never saw her take a risk in this relationship. We never saw her lead with vulnerability. We saw her react to Aaron.
Yeah, no, that is all very valid points. I think you've convinced me. I think you've convinced me on this one. Inevitable, check. Yeah. All right, so then let's move on to the next. Was it predictable?
Also, yes. Wait,
Yeah.
can I also just point out? No, I'll save this for later.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was even going to say, even the way that this breakup has been handled is so indicative of their relationship. We have two other examples here. We have Kylie. She comes out first with her Instagram story talking about Avon's infidelity. Avon matches Instagram story, apology, acknowledging breakup, acknowledging infidelity, deletes Instagram, gone. Okay.
Oh, he deleted his Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Next, we have Kat and John Henry. They come out with a collab post, both of them acknowledging the breakup. Great, fine. Then we have Aaron, yet again, doing all the work here. He puts out an Instagram story essentially saying, our love story's ended. Thanks for the support. Eliza, not a word. Nope, nothing. Not a word about their relationship. She's posting on, I mean, as far as I've seen, it's December 17th that we data filming. If there's been something, please comment. I have not seen it, but at least December 11th, 12th, 13th.
I mean, he broke the news on Monday. It is now Sunday. It has been 6 full days.
Yeah. And so again, here he is doing the lift of the relationship, even in the breakup.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that.
I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio.
They don't seem to really understand. Aaron B seems really interested in going through the motions and getting to the engagement and doing the victory and the win. Whereas Eliza, it's just not clear to me what her actual motivation is. I didn't watch the previous season, but I know there was a bunch of drama in the last season. It was all about,
self-induced drama.
Yeah, I just feel like it's always about some journey of self-discovery with her. Is the narrative that we keep getting told. But at the same time, I'm seeing no journey. I'm seeing no self-discovery. Like, what are we doing here?
Right. There's very little growth.
Yeah. And I just don't really understand, like, what is production? Production has presumably tens of thousands of people who apply to these shows. And they handpick a handful of them for specific reasons because they fit specific. Maybe they're a villain. Maybe they're this. Maybe they're that.
I was just thinking about the statistic that Sean gave on his podcast interview about how there are more people drafted into the NBA than there are to be in the Bachelor franchise.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the applicant pool for Bachelor Nation is a lot larger than the NBA. And so, yeah, to your point, they have so many people to pick from, so few spots. How
do they land on some of these people? How do they land on Eliza and then cast her 3 times?
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
People love her. I was seeing so many comments like Eliza for next Bachelorette.
Oh God.
Like
horrible season.
I don't get it. Truly, I don't get it. I mean, I think she's like a very pretty girl. She's adorable. I mean, she seems very sweet. So good. But beyond that, like, not compelling.
That would be the worst season to have to review.
Just the lack of maturity is not, doesn't make me want to watch an entire, season. So all of this to say, well, there's a casting problem for sure. I mean, definitely a casting problem that all couples broke up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a huge problem. And I think the predictability in this breakup was high. We're also alluding to, I know what your third question is going to be regarding red flags. And for me, 2 big red flags, I'm sure I'll add more as I start talking. One was Eliza's immaturity. And sub bullets under that, lack of vulnerability, lack of risk taking. And then second red flag was the asymmetry in this relationship. And I've used this word in another Reactivity TV podcast on Golden Bachelor. And what I mean by an asymmetrical relationship is essentially that it's not balanced, that someone is whether they have more power than the other. And this, in the case of the Golden Bachelor, when I was using it, that's what I was really referring to, is that it's asymmetrical because Gary has so much power and control, and the contestants do not. In this case, when I'm talking about asymmetry and lack of balance, what I'm talking about is the input versus output, the investment versus the withdrawal. And Aaron B's input into this relationship is so much higher than Eliza's. And that is asymmetrical. And in sense, I mean, I guess you can extrapolate that there's a power differential there too, in that Eliza holds a lot more power in this relationship than Aaron does. And in order for Aaron to feel more secure in the relationship, aka more powerful, he has to keep inputting into the relationship and into Eliza in order to kind of try to get even. But the more that he does that, the more power fuels the power of Eliza. And so that to me was like a huge red flag that we saw this entire time. We saw him recite her breakfast order. Do we think Eliza knows his?
Never saw it. I'm not sure he ate breakfast because he was too busy making hers every morning. I think the kitchen was closed by the time he got around to eating his own. Yeah, look, I completely agree with all of that. The power differential was so apparent. You know, anytime, and maybe this is from personal experience, but anytime I see an individual, specifically a guy, dote on a girl that much and get nothing back from her over an extended period of time is exhausting. And this is sort of one of the defining things. Like, you know, men are like the hunters. We are the ones who want to provide naturally and biologically. We want to provide. And really, truly, and this is a thing for all women out there, all a man really needs to feel special is just tell him you appreciate him. That is it. It's such a small thing to do. Let him provide for you and then tell him that you appreciate that he provided for you. That is like the biggest compliment and maybe the greatest thing you can do to just have a great, solid relationship with a man, because it really is as simple as that. And we never saw it. We saw Aaron continually try to provide, continue within the confines of what you can do within the framework of the show, and show that he is a provider for her, and never, ever, ever getting anything back that even remotely approaches something like appreciation from Eliza. And that to me was just like, this is never going to work. You know, or that is the big red flag, that if she doesn't learn to just demonstrate some level of appreciation verbally or through acts of service or something, this is a big problem.
Well, the thing that I guess, as you're saying that, you're so right. And that's where I'm sort of like concerned for Aaron, not concerned for Aaron, but like, Aaron, why were you okay with that? Like, why was that okay to you? I mean, what in my mind, the question is like, what happened to you? Who hurt you? You know, like, why, wow, like, why did you keep going back for more and more and more, and get so little in return? Why did that feel good to you to keep doing?
Let me. So I have personal experience in this, and what I would say is that, like, there was a girl that I dated before you, and I was in the Aaron B situation where I would put in so much effort to keep her happy, and she would just keep moving the goalposts on me. And there are two reasons why I continued on. The first is the male ego. The first is like, this was a challenge. This was a young woman who was, you know, attractive. She was a little bit older than me, and it was one of these things where it felt like, okay, like, she's interested in me enough to date me. Like, this is stroking my ego. You know, she's older than all my friends' girlfriends. She's, you know, attractive, whatever. Her family was relatively affluent. And so it was just an ego stroke. And so, and you're always kind of chasing this, like, oh no, like,
so her being interested in you was affirming to you.
Was affirming to me. Absolutely. The second piece of why I did it is actually my parents' fault. And so my parents were junior high sweethearts, much like Tony and Gary. My parents have actually quite a similar kind of story. And one thing that my parents taught me is that you just don't, the tenacity, you just don't give up easily on things. And this is a double-edged sword. And like, so in my case, it was, oh, this is somebody you like, so you just keep putting in the effort. And one thing that my parents did a very bad job of training me and my brothers to do was give up. or
Knowing when to say when.
acknowledging that, and this is something I had to learn myself throughout time, is acknowledging when like this is no longer healthy and you just need to acknowledge that you're not getting your needs met and you need to get out of this situation.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. And I think if we think about Aaron B, and after he had gotten dumped by Charity, he still got on a plane, flew halfway around the world to Fiji to try to get back together with her, talk about tenacity and ego, right? So that actually is a helpful perspective. But I was more thinking in terms of like the who hurt you, what happened to you question, is that like for me, that reads as so insecure, right? Like that you need to continue to put yourself in this position where you must have such a low value and sense of worth for yourself that you need to keep going based on this affirmation alone from this woman. That's more where that question was coming from, is that it reads as so wildly insecure and lacking of self-worth. In terms of other red flags, what red flags did you see? I named like two big ones of mine.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mentioned the big one for me. I think that the immaturity thing is really, really big for me. When somebody doesn't really seem to fundamentally know, and we talk about this with Kylie in particular, when somebody doesn't really seem to understand what being in a relationship and being married really actually means and what it entails, that's like a really big red flag. And we talked about this in the finale episode. Of the three couples, Kat was actually the only one who actually really seemed to understand what it meant to be engaged and be married. Both Kylie and Eliza didn't seem to have, they had this Disneyfication view of what it was. And that's a red flag for me, right? I mean, marriage is a really wonderful yet complicated and selfless, act that you undertake. And if you don't understand that, and if you also happen to be immature and a little spoiled, then it's a big red flag.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big one. I mean, she went into this proposal walk, I guess, not knowing what she was going to say, which again tells me how little she actually considered the heaviness, the weight of this decision of a yes. And that for me, like this idea of proposing and not being sure if someone's going to say yes or not, aka Aaron B, also speaks to not understanding what it actually means to be engaged. Like I mean, Catherine and I have talked about this countlessly on Reactivity TV past in terms of proposal and marriage. Like it should not really be a question, because you are making a decision about your collective lives together, and it should be a joint decision that you're making together to do that. You should have confidence that you're on the same page about that, and so that to me means that, again, this was one of my big criticisms of Kat and John Henry, is that clearly you also, Eliza and Aaron, did not have the conversations that you needed to have leading up to this point, or when you were off camera in the fantasy suites. Like there should not be this amount of questioning or uncertainty. This should be the most confident in your relationship you will ever be, is when you're making this decision to move forward to the next step.
Yeah. I mean, the answer when you propose to somebody should be a foregone conclusion, not a surprise, right? It's exactly your point. Like before we got married, we had a lot of conversations about career paths, about where we're going to live, about family dynamics, about religion, about all these different really, really important things. And we had lived together prior to getting married. And so we had already kind of figured out what those dynamics would look like. Like when I proposed to you, there was no, like the thought that you would say no was not even in the cards. There was no part of me at any point in time thought that was even like a possibility. If you're not there, then if you think there's a possibility that they might say no, then that means that you need to be doing more work, having more conversations.
Right.
Because why is it that they're saying no? If they're saying no, it means one of you hasn't done the work, or one of you isn't prepared to budge on something that's important to the other one.
Right. No, it's true. And I know at the top of our episode, when you were kind of introducing who we were talking about today, and refer to them as one of the strongest couples on the beach, I said, that's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Because we never saw them actually engage in conversation, meaningful conversations about their relationship, present or future. We saw them talk about Aaron's past relationship, but that was the most like serious we saw them get. And so like nothing about them screamed solid, strong at all. Mostly, again, back to that asymmetrical piece again.
Yeah, they were solid and strong in that
Aaron was really solid and strong into Eliza.
Well, in that within the framework of the show, neither one of them were ever really in doubt of getting a rose, and they were not going on dates with other people, and they were locked in. So within the framework of the show, they were stable and secure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the work. I mean, we could say the same thing about Aven and Kylie, but at the same time, like Aven and Kylie, were not stable and secure either. They were just locked into one another.
Sure.
Those are two different things. Yeah. So what else you want to talk about with the two of them? We good? We'll get out of here for today. All right. Take us home.
All right. So as we've been alluding to, we have two other bonus podcasts in this breakup edition of Bachelor in Paradise. So go check those out. First one is all about Aven and Kylie. Second one is about Kat and John Henry. So go check those out on our channel. I will also link a Wishing You Well podcast on conflict, where we talk about power dynamics in relationships, that will help explain some of that asymmetry that I was referring to. So I'll make sure to link that in our show notes. You can follow along with us on Instagram at ReviveCFW. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. And we'll be back with more bonus content for these seasons of Bachelor in Paradise and Golden Bachelor. So stay tuned for that. We will see you soon.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.